Around $100 turns old school emergency brakes electric.
Wake up, Daddy Sean.
Welcome, Hamza.
No more wrestling with that crusty lever.
I can't stop! Help!
If you're looking for the next cool mod for your ride, something that screams innovation and ingenuity is something that I stumbled across, and it doesn't seem to empty your wallet. And it could be a game changer for some. An electric emergency brake system that's not only budget friendly, but also pretty easy to install. We all know the headache of dealing with vintage emergency brakes. Sometimes they're more decorative than functional. And sometimes they demand that space that could be used for exhaust systems and other things underneath the dash. Let's dive in here. Here's what you're gonna need. An electric actuator, a small control box and controller, some wiring, and a push button. And these parts can easily be found online, and I'll provide you a list in the description. While this mod may not be for every car, every person, and every situation, there are certain situations where it is necessary. And you can do this mod without sacrificing any style or space. Let's jump into a step-by-step how I installed this to my ride. Let's make those parking moments as smooth as your drive. All right, let's jump into the wiring of this thing. On the switch, you'll see a green, a blue, and a yellow, depending on what kind of switch you get. Connect those to the set screws, the 3 set screws on the control board. And then the other wires for the switch, again, depending on what kind of switch you get, are to light up the LED on the switch. So that's where the 12 volt and the ground comes from for the switch. Then you get to the actuators, you have a black and a red wire. The red wire to the positive side of the motor and the black wire to the ground. There's an adjustment screw. I just want you to note where it's at for now. We'll talk about it in just a little bit. Then you have the main ground wire and the 12 volt coming into the controller. And after wiring it up, I just gave it a good test on the bench with a power supply, and all checked out well. Now it's time to move underneath the car and get everything prepped ready for the actuators. All right, my friends, I think we have a plan, and what I'm gonna use is these are the hinge plates that go inside of the frame rails of the A-pillars. And I'm gonna use this as a blocking plate. Let me show you underneath there. So underneath here, it's a little dark, but you can see here's the frame rail, the rear frame rail. Here's the leaf spring bolt. So you don't have a lot of backing right here. And I want to put some extra reinforcement. So I'm going to use one of these plates, and I'm actually going to use that hole. I'm actually going to tap the hole all the way through this. It's a 5/16 bolt. But I'm going to make this curve here, make a cut so that it tucks up in here really nice, and use this bottom hole to attach the actuator. Should work out nice, but let's see. Let's find out. All right, this piece is a little hot still, but I want to just see if I can get it up in there. See how it looks. I'm going to punch another couple of holes in this piece so that it, yeah, that ought to fit up there a lot nicer. Tucked it up this way, a little bit more that way. Sorry, this thing's still too hot. My gloves have holes in them. Anyway, I'm gonna punch a few more holes in here because I'm gonna use it to plug weld and attach this. I'm gonna try to find the center, which is pretty easy. It's right there, the center where they machined it. But it's probably a little bit better way. But all I'm looking for is a way to pass the cable through the center of this. So drill slowly. Now I'm just giving it an angle so that I can throw the wire that way. So this one will sit on this side and you'll angle the wire that way. All right, next, this dude. All right, and just put a little offset in it on each side so that this one can be on that side or whatever. You can turn it around too if you need to, but yeah, that's that. All right, just enlarging this hole to a 5/16. You're gonna do is you're gonna bring this in like that. First, you're gonna notice this slides through. You're gonna need to clamp that. So what I've done is I got some vice grips and I just squeeze ever so gently until that clamps are closing in enough to get the cable through. Really nothing more. I'm just going to make sure we can get the cable through. So come up underneath. If you're using a different setup, of course you can do it differently, but for this one SN197 brake that I'm using, this seems to be best approach. All right, so once this is sandwiched in there, it's not going to come out without some work, so that's what you want. And you're going to get this nut started and just get it started. It's got a lock washer on it basically, so it'll take a little bit of pressure to lock it down in there, but it's nice that it holds up in there. Grab you 11/16 and a 5/8. I've also used this alignment spacer that I'll put in here and sit like this, just kind of level everything out, but it'll probably fall out while I'm tightening this. And it's a little slow go here, but you know, you want to take your time here. These are some long threads, but it's nice that it locks into place. Right, now you got to decide if you want it in or out, and I go over the leaf springs the way I do it. can really route it the way you want. Just want to stay away from the interference with the shock and everything like that. So I'm thinking that's pretty good. Be out of the way. So I'm going to start cutting it right here with this tool first. Kind of get it going. You're going to want to cut one of those, just one of those slivers off so that it'll free up. The only way I've done it is just use this little saw here. Cut that glove on so that if I miss, I'll still have some fingers. Like that. Almost just missed. Alright, just kind of hold it back like that so it reveals itself, but it's hard to manage. There it goes. Okay, so you don't want to saw through your cable, obviously, but this is how you do it first. Get those extra long, and yes, I bought some extra long cables. For what reason, I do not know. But it is what I had. So now you take this. We'll use this. I'm going to get a washer. If you have to cut some more plastic off, that's not the end of the world, but you just can't put it back on. That's the problem. I think I like it a little shorter, but going all the way to this. No. Alright, so once you have it loosely mocked up there, you're going to want to then run it through your hole that you drilled out the front. Take a small screwdriver and just kind of push it that direction. There it goes. Alright, so it takes a little bit of pressure, but then you can start feeding this through. Start getting it in position right about there. Bring that up. Now tighten it a little bit more. There. All right, so what we have is we have both lines set up. They're loose fit right here because we're gonna go ahead and wait until we get the controller and everything wired up before we notch these things. Because what I'm gonna use is a clamp. It clamps right there, and I'm gonna use some heat shrink here just to keep it from scarring up everything. Not a big deal under here. It still needs to be kind of touched up down under here anyway. So, all right, that's what we're doing. Alright, so this is the piece that came with the brake lines that I used. I'll put the link in the description. This is what I'm going to use to lock the cable in. We're going to cut it in half because we don't need it in its current configuration. . 1 1/4 inch. 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 1 1/4 inch I've cut that emergency brake cable clamp that I've got here. I'm going to attach it right here and right here on this one. And so basically I'm just using that. I'm going to cut the line later after I know everything's kind of dialed in. And what I'll do now, these things, this adjustment screw works off amperage. So I'll be able to adjust that based on the amperage it needs to travel 1 inch. That's basically what we're doing here. So let's get to it. So first things first, let's attach these motors again to here. Again, I tested this on the workbench. Learned from doing these in the past is don't cut this little end off yet. It frays. I'm not sure how to unfray or to make it like that again without like maybe welding it. I don't know, but anyway, don't cut it until you are ready, in other words. So now we're just gonna put this back up in here. Gonna use it as our stop. And again, we can adjust the amperage draw. So if it's not completely tight right now, don't worry about that. Just want to make sure it's tight enough to catch. Hold this in a weird way to where you push the button and you want to watch it and see. There, it shut off. So that is the load position now that it will memorize. So let's see how far that went off. So we're at 1.5 inches, which I'll look at it. I'll tighten these up again and see if that's a good position. All right, so that's key off, just as you would at the ignition. Now see a slack in here, so just because it's stretched out, now I can adjust that, and I'll see everything got a little stretched, which is gonna be normal on your normal e-brake. You get that, you have to do this anyway. You have to go in there and adjust and tighten up. So key on, we're gonna hit the monetary switch and verify if it's good or not. If that's not quite enough, let's see how much amperage or how far that went in. That went in pretty good. It's got quite a bit of tension on it. Now, let me see. I mean, it's holding. I would like to see it grab just a little bit more though. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen it up. Kind of do the little dance again. You're holding it, and then counterclockwise is tightening it. Not enough. See if that did it. Man, it is locked in there good. We are at back at 1.5 inches, which I think's better. I think for these brakes. See, now just as long as it's loose, and it is. Yep, it is. It's loose enough. This one's stretched out just a little bit more, so I need to go ahead and tighten it up. All right, it's time to cut this line, and I'm just going to run some shrink tube over it, so that way when I cut it, it's already safe. Now I'm just running a wire to the back. I think I'm going to install it back there. It's the best option that I can think of right now. I think it's a good one. So I'm going to run this. This will be my power wire to the back. I'll have to find a key on wire. Alright, so I modified this little ring. I kept it in there from the cigarette lighter so that this button can now fit really nicely in there. Alright, so now we're going to make the motor connections, which I have this wire feeding to the back to the motors. So once you get the wires installed in there, now you can secure your board. Tap those holes, and I put these screws for these little sheet metal screws, plastic screws, whatever you find, but this is what I used. Which means we need to plug it in out here. All right, let's give this a go. Key on. Blue light is working. Power steering enabled. Got electric power steering. Let's see if these emergency brakes work. Oh, now. Listen to that. Should be working. Should be good. Let's undo them. A wonderful thing. All right, guys, so I realize this mod may not be for everyone, but anybody that's going to be struggling with exhaust systems in the way of their emergency brake, they want the extra interior space inside, this may be a mod for you. And if you're interested in a cost estimate and hours spent on this ride, go and check out this video, because that's where we broke this one down. This one started its life as a coupe, converted it to a fastback. Check that video out with all the cost and hours to date.